Hello there. Thanks for joining me. Good to see you again. Um, I've been doing this job quite a while now. I joined HCB back in 1993, and things have changed a lot out in the real world. Um, for instance, when 4PLs came along, actually, I was still trying to get to grips with 3PLs, and then 4PLs happened. And we had Six Sigma and lean manufacturing, lean supply chains, all that sort of thing. And these fashions come and go. And while we've never really been a magazine for the environmental lobby, obviously working in an industry like the petrochemicals business, you have to take account of that. And I think there's a lot to be said for the environmental movement in cleaning up the planet. Heavens, we all want that, a nice place to live. But one of the things that I do find myself writing about an awful lot these days is sustainability. And not just in the supply chain, but in the chemical and oil production sectors or refining sectors. And this was, for those of you who were in on the EPCA annual meeting last month, a hot topic. It was something that all the chemical companies who were there represented with speakers talked about and how important it is. I don't know. If I think back 20 years, there was a lot of stuff coming from the C-suite, as we call it now. That was another new idea about only, for instance, chartering quality ships. All well and good, except, of course, when you get down to the chartering department, if they can shave 50 cents a tonne off the freight, then they probably will do. I hope that the message that's coming down from the C-suite these days about sustainability will be reflected in the actions in the purchasing department, for instance. Another thing that's changed lately is the idea of collaboration. And as I wrote in my letter from the editor in the November issue of HCB, which is at the printers at the moment. You can see the electronic issue online there, about how collaboration used to be a really, really bad thing, not least in the Second World War, of course. But also, I remember being warned off using the word at all, particularly by trade associations who really didn't want to make it look as though they were promoting antitrust behaviour, anti-competitive behaviour, particularly after a number of senior executives in the chemical supply chain ended up in jail and companies were heavily fined when these things came out. And so collaboration was not the sort of word to use. You could talk about cooperation, I suppose, but collaboration smacked too much of anti-competitive behaviour. And yet, when I was sitting through the presentations at the EPCA annual meeting, the idea of collaboration was bandied about all over the place. And you can see why. Because one of the things that, again, cropped up time and time again was how much the industry will need to rely on other parties with other expertise in order to move towards the decarbonised society that regulators and the UN are demanding. And you can see that, companies, even huge multinational companies, have to bring in outsiders to take a look at their IT systems, to, for instance, in the logistics chain, to digitize their fleet, to set up platforms and control towers and what have you, so that the information that is being collected and analysed and used can be sent to the people who need to know about it. That's sensible, I suppose. And indeed, the one stumbling block that keeps cropping up, and Herman Tering talked about this during the Label Line biennial web show as well, is the lack of standards across the various transport modes, even within the transport modes, across national and regional boundaries. And again, to some extent, that's understandable. The milestone messages, let's say, that you need for a road transport movement across Europe are not the same as the milestone messages that you need for a shipment by sea or air across time zones. And obviously, a lot of work is still to be done in this area. I think things have come a long way very quickly. But there's more to be done if we are going to get to a point where we have full visibility easily all the way along the supply chain or across all modes. And the same is said, I think, of the route to decarbonisation. Now, going back to the EPCA meeting, there was, again, a lot of talk about the EU's Green Deal and what that might mean. Since then, the European Commission has published the, I think it's called the EU Chemical Strategy for Sustainability, a long document, and as you might expect from bureaucrats in Brussels, or is it Strasbourg, one or the other, it's quite dense. And there's a lot to wade through if you want to see what they're expecting. Now, this is this is what you pay the European Chemical Industry Council and FECC, the European Association of Chemical Distributors, have commented on the strategy document. And both of them have said, well, yes, we want to play our part. The chemical industry is part of the solution, not the problem. It's easy to say, it's part of the problem to start with, I suspect, but it does have the tools and the products to work us towards a decarbonised solution in the future. But what they both said was that, well, there needs to be more dialogue, more cooperation, more collaboration, if you like, between industry and the regulating bodies and the authorities such as the EU and non-governmental organisations as well, who have a role to play and a stake in the matter. And so they're calling quite explicitly for collaboration if we are going to get to net zero by 2050, I think is the target. You can't help thinking sometimes that the Chinese have a better way of doing this. And Beijing has come up with a very ambitious target to be, for the country, to be carbon neutral by 2060. Very ambitious, given China's reliance on coal in its energy mix, which still accounts for more than 50% of overall consumption, I think. But then in China, they do things differently. And if Beijing says this is what's going to happen, then that's what's going to happen. And clearly they've thought about it. And so it will be very interesting to see what the next 40 years are going to bring in China. I wish I'd be here to see it. Who knows? Maybe I will. I hope, be here to talk to you again next week. Not sure what the topic will be yet. But I hope you found some of these thoughts interesting. And I look forward to seeing you again. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.